welcome to my Southern Simply Kitchen, where Southern food is simply done. Today we're going to be making an old recipe of my mom's. I call it Nanny Jolly's Nutty Blonde Brownies because all the kids call my mom Nanny Jolly. And so, but she originally got this recipe probably in the early 60s. She just wrote it on a piece of paper, and now it's so faded you can't read it, but I just happen to remember how to make it. It's 5 ingredients and so simple. You don't need a mix. It's way better for you than a mix, and just simple. And so to start with, what we're going to do is preheat our oven to 300. And so let's get it started. And our ingredients, we have 2 cups of chopped nuts, which I use pecans, being a good Southern girl. And I'm going to stick these in the oven to toast a little bit while my oven's preheating. Now you really have to keep an eye on them because nuts will burn in a heartbeat. So I like to just do it while the oven's preheating. It takes probably about 5 minutes in there. You'll start to smell them a little bit, and when you do, grab them out. And then I have 4 eggs at room temperature. I have 2 cups of self-rising flour, half a stick of butter, unsalted, and I have a 1 pound of light brown sugar. And then I have a 6th ingredient that I added myself, and that would be a half a teaspoon of vanilla. So we'll be back in just a second and we'll get started. Okay, now to get started, I just dumped the whole pound of brown sugar into my bowl here, and then there's my half stick of butter, my 4 tablespoons, and we are going to stick this in the microwave for a minute, and we're going to keep going for 1 minute at a time until the butter gets all melted and I can stir it in well. And then let me check the nuts that are in the oven. They're starting to have their little toasty smell, so I think that's time to get them out. So let me make room for them here because this pan will be warm. And so we'll sit this here. You can see they're nice and toasted. They've changed their color a little bit. And I like to give them a little stir because we need them to cool off now before we put them into our mix. So while that is getting ready, we're going to spray our pan, and our pan is a little bit bigger than a 9 by 13 pan. And you've seen me do this before, but I'll show you again. I'm going to spray right over my dishwasher so that if there's any overspray, it doesn't get on the floor or anywhere that I have to clean up the dishwasher can. So I've got my pan all coated with cooking spray. And I think it's time to check our brown sugar and butter. And it needs a little more time, so let's put it in for another minute. And my mother, she loved caramel, she loved brown sugar, and those flavors are what I guess inspired her to make these brownies so often. But when our family was going on a picnic or an adventure in the car, anywhere, we always took these brownies, and probably because they didn't have icing and didn't make a mess. So anyway, we will be back in just a minute, and I will have the brown sugar out of the microwave. Okay, the microwave is beat, and that was 2 1-minute cycles in the microwave, and our butter is all melted. And so mix it here with the brown sugar. And now this is warm, so you need to let it cool just a little bit. And I've taken the nuts out of the oven, so we need to let both of these cool. Normally I would be assembling my other ingredients, but I already have them done. So I will let this cool for about 5 minutes, and then we'll be back. Okay, I've let this cool because if it's too hot and too warm, you could scramble your eggs when you put them in there, and you don't want scrambled eggs in your blondies, or at least I don't. So we're going to add our 4 eggs, and I just beat them up a little there with my fork, and start mixing them in. Get them all out there. So anyway, just give it a good little toss there, because that's all the liquid that's going to go in here. And then just keep stirring. You don't have to get all the lumps out right now, but we're going to start adding our self-rising flour. Remember, that was 2 cups of self-rising flour. And if you don't have self-rising flour, you can take 1½ teaspoons of baking powder and put it in your cup. Now that was baking powder, not baking soda. And a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and put it in your measuring cup, and then add all-purpose flour to equal 1 cup, and that will give you self-rising flour, just in case you don't have any. Not all cooks have a supply of it. And then just add the flour a little at a time, and then just keep mixing it up. And I always just stir this up by hand. Didn't see any need to use a mixer, because a mixer would incorporate air into it, and you don't want these to be fluffy. So just keep stirring them up, and you get the idea of how to mix it up. And so I'm going to add the nuts next, but I'll be back in a minute and I'll have it all mixed up, because it takes a little while when you're doing it all by hand. Okay, I've got the flour all stirred in now, and I'm going to add ½ teaspoon of vanilla. That's, remember I said, was an optional ingredient, but it's one I like, so I'll stir that in. And then next we're going to add the nuts. And you see how this is such a beautiful caramel color now? It's just what it should look like. It reminds me of caramel, which is what brown sugar is made of. Or, excuse me, caramel is made out of brown sugar. And so let's put some of the nuts in, and then just give them a stir. And this is one time you don't have to coat the nuts with flour, because there are so many nuts in here, they are not going to sink to the bottom. And so got that. So let's get the rest of the nuts in. And give that another stir. And oh my goodness, at my house we fight over who gets to clean out the bowl for this one whenever we get them in the pan. Everybody loves the flavor of this batter. It is just so delicious. So I think we have it all mixed up there. And so it does not look like a lot of batter, but it is. And so got our pan right here. And remember, we just sprayed it with just some cooking spray, not the one with flour in it. And so just scrape it out from your pan or from your bowl, and we'll spread it out. And get these things in the oven. See how you just have to kind of work the batter around in the thing. It's a good thick batter, not a lot of liquid in it. And I guess that is probably what keeps the nuts from sinking in it, but it is just so good. And so just work that batter around, get it in the corners, because everybody loves the brownie out of the corner. And so time to get these in the oven, and we're going to let them cook in the oven for 30 to 35 minutes. You can tell they'll be done around the edges, and then you can take a little cake tester like this, and you can check them in the center and make sure they're done. So I'm going to stick these in the oven. We'll be back in about 30-35 minutes with hot brownies. Okay, the countdown is on, and there it is. It just went off. And we will check on these blondies. They've been in the oven for 30 minutes at 300. And oh my gosh. Oh, you just wouldn't believe that smell of brown sugar blondies. Just smells like caramel in here. And oh my goodness, so let's check to see if they're really done, because they sure look pretty. And I don't see anything on my cake tester. And another way you know they're done is they're brown around the edges, pulling away from the sides of the pan, and usually that's a clear indication that they're done. And so we just need to let these sit here for a little bit and cool, because you cannot cut them when they're hot like that. They just make a mess. And if you're going to share these with somebody, however, if we weren't going to share these, I might would dig in, but I will just wait for just a little while. We'll let them cool probably about 30 minutes, and then we'll be back and we'll try one. Okay, we've let them cool for 30 minutes because I just can't wait any longer than 30 minutes. So we're just going to cut into them. I think I'll cut one for me and my hubby, and give them a taste. Now, you can cut them pretty small, and you can get a whole big pan full of them, a whole big plate full of them. And people will be coming back for seconds just because they're that good. So, hope you're going to like them. And so I'm going to taste mine because I have had to stand here and smell these, and they just smell so good. Oh my gosh. You got that caramelly flavor, you got the nutty taste, they're a little bit chewy, you got that little crunchy crust on the top. These are just perfect blondie brownies. So if you need a 5-ingredient fix and you need something to take somewhere in a hurry, just remember you can run out, or just keep it on hand all the time. You need 2 cups of chopped pecans, a pound of brown sugar, 4 tablespoons of melted butter, 4 eggs, and 2 cups of self-rising flour. And then I like to add a ½ teaspoon of vanilla. Mix it all together, bake it at 300 for 30 to 35 minutes, and you'll have a pan of blondies. And I hope you will enjoy them as much as my family has over the years.